Hi, Patricia Martucci here, licensed marriage and family therapist practicing in New York, New Jersey, and virtually in California. And what I want to talk about today is moving. And as a bi-coastal therapist, I deal with this a lot with my clients. I work with a lot of clients who will be coming from LA, for example, moving to New York City, or I deal with clients who maybe I've been working with in New York and they're moving to the West Coast. One of the perks to being a bi-coastal therapist is that I can continue on to work with my clients as they move. And I'm licensed in New Jersey too. So there's cases I work with where they're family therapy, and I have one person in New Jersey and then another person in California, for example. So anyway, I think what keeps coming up in a topic that I wanted to address is specifically moving from west to east. And I originally am from New Jersey, and I moved out to the West Coast about in 2010. Was it? Yeah, 2010. For my grad school was in San Francisco, and then I got an internship in Los Angeles. So I spent almost a decade in California and the last, I think, 7 years in Los Angeles. And I think it was a lot easier for me, at least, going east to west. I felt like my whole nervous system slowed down when I landed in really in LA specifically. I felt that it's a much slower environment in many ways than living on the East Coast. I went out there for an internship and I ended up staying for almost a decade because I really responded well to California, the culture, the lifestyle, and my nervous system really finally had a chance after many years of being go, go, go on the East Coast to really settle down and to slow down a bit. And I remember the first year in my internship, my mentor told me that I'd seen more clients than anybody she's ever had work for her before. And I realized part of it, I think, is because I was, in that momentum of just go, go, go. And just very, having that East Coast sense of drive and ambition. And by the time that I was ready to move back to the East Coast, which I live now in New York City, my whole system had really slowed down. So what specifically I wanted to focus on today was the move from west to east. I have a lot of clients who do it, who are here in New York City for either school, for work, or maybe they came out from school and they stayed. There's different reasons that they've come to the East Coast. And I think it can be a really challenging thing to move from one place to the next, first of all. But to move to a place such as New York City, I think can bring about its own challenges. And one of the things that I typically will recommend that my clients do when they first get here is to find a few places in the city that they can feel calm and that they can go to when they need and are looking for a sense of regulation. I think New York City, in the go-go, a fast-paced environment, it can be really, really hard to slow down. I think for me, my nervous system has definitely been impacted by my, I guess, 6 years here living in Manhattan and working in Manhattan. I also go to New Jersey one day a week for my practice. And for a while I was working up in Westchester, and so it's been nice to kind of have some time outside of the city to be in more residential, naturey environments, and have that perspective as well. But to find some places that, are places where you can find your calm, find your center, where you can go to where you're feeling like, okay, with the busy world going around me, I feel calm here. Yoga studios are great. I think different parks are great. In the wintertime, it can be really hard, I think, for West Coasters, especially in Southern California, to find places that feel, you know, relaxing, because the trick, or the one of the challenging parts about living in the city, specifically with the winter and the cold weather, is that a lot of us live in apartments, in smaller apartments, and so there's not a lot of space inside to really move around and to stretch. And sometimes if there's not a lot of sunlight coming in, it can really, affect people, as they make that transition. So what really helped me when I first moved here was I actually found other people that also had moved from LA, and we all just kind of clung to each other in a way, and really were navigating the city together, and we kind of got each other, and that was really super helpful. I told myself to, and I did this, to have fun in the wintertime, to find different activities that, are specific to winter. So I took up ice skating, and I've been ice skating now for the last, I guess 6 years, maybe 5 years. And I've taken ice skating lessons, and I find it to be really fun and, really challenging, but like something I can do outdoors that's fun and can get me out of the house. I think dressing appropriately for the weather is pivotal to having a positive experience in a colder climate like New York City in the winter. There is an expression that I heard when I was in Germany they say, I think there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing, meaning that the weather is what it is. It's our job to dress accordingly, and I found that to be true. So I have this company that I love, that's out in Scotland, that makes a lot of cashmere stuff, and I love, love, love ordering stuff from there and being cozy in the winter. It makes all the difference. Also, there's a term that I learned. It's called Hygge, and it Hygge, I believe. And when I came here, I also did a deep dive into studying how all of the Scandinavian cultures, they seem to be really happy and well adjusted to winter, and how they remain happy. And that word Hygge means really kind of like coziness and creating an environment of warmth, through connection, conversation, lots of candles, cozy blankets, slippers, lots of teas, soups, and it's kind of like a ambiance that we can create in the wintertime that can bring a sense of warmth. And so that's something I've really gotten deep into after moving here, and really trying to understand who I was in this new place. And I think we can attach our identity at times to where we live. And I feel like when I lived in California, my insides and my outsides matched really, really well. I felt like California, ever since I saw Beverly Hills 90210 and Baywatch and all those shows that I, grew up watching, I always had wanted to be out there, and I love the summertime. And, I had a really, really easy adjustment from moving east to west, although I didn't really know anybody. When I moved there, I felt like I met a lot of fast friends, and I have tons of friends I still keep in touch with on the West Coast. And I think that was very, very easy transition for me. I think what was a little bit challenging is you kind of like wait for the season change to happen, and it doesn't. And which is kind of nice that it's beautiful pretty much most of the time. But that was an adjustment. Also, the adjustment the rain, I think, that happens in SoCal is so infrequent that it's a big deal there, and the streets get really slippery. And I didn't know that they would talk about it on the news like weeks before that we were anticipating rain. We had earthquakes out there, you know, little ones, but still we would feel them, and that was interesting. You know, it's a totally different culture. The traffic is differently and all of that. So I think, you know, in terms of regulating our nervous system as we come to somewhere new, we also want to, you know, do a lot of orienting, a lot of kind of looking around, looking at our environment to settle in, sort of scanning our environment for, you know, the things that make us happy. And as we look at, you know, what those things are around us, like, oh, I'm landing on, even in New York City, like going down the street, you know, oh, there's a beautiful flower, there's trees, there's different things that bring a sense of calm. So paying attention to what those are. Community can be huge. I think building community, finding ways to really do that is also a big part of moving. And, you know, and to give ourselves time. Someone told me it takes a full 2 years to really adjust to a new place and to feel at home. And I found that to be true when I moved from the East Coast. I was in New Jersey at the time to Southern California. It took a good 2 years, and I did find myself wanting to move back a little bit in the beginning, but once I settled in, I was so glad that I didn't. So, you know, here in New York I found it to be a little bit different in terms of feeling settled. You know, I think I'm still trying to feel settled here. It's been 6 years living in Manhattan, and you know, it's different. I think it's a very transient place, and both cities have a lot of movement happening. There's a lot of people that live here from other places, just as there was in LA, which isn't necessarily, you know, the most common thing for cities. Well, I guess for cities maybe, but for other places I've lived, like when I lived in New Jersey, you know, there weren't people from all over the world necessarily right where I lived. I mean, although it was pretty diverse where I grew up, but yeah, so I think that familiarity can come over time, and just to be patient. I think that, you know, it does take our system some time to transition, and just to give ourselves time to be very super gentle on ourselves, to be kind to ourselves, to, you know, look for, like, again, like I've said in previous videos, whenever there's a big change, I love to look for, you know, what's the same, whether I'm here or in Europe or, you know, on the West Coast or wherever I am. There's certain similarities that don't change. Like in nature, you know, we have our sun cycles, our moon cycles, the astrology cycles. You know, there's certain things like my cycles within my own system, you know, that remain the same. So I think really attuning to those things can be super helpful. And so that's what I have on that for now. And I'd love to hear your comments if anybody's moved from west to east or east to west or really anywhere, you know, how you found it and any different nuances that you found to be your experience and anything that you found to be helpful. Thank you so much.